My best friend needed help, so I let him move in. Now, he and my wife are expecting a baby, and it's definitely not mine. I, 35M, always thought I had it all figured out. A successful career, a beautiful wife, and a best friend who'd been by my side since college. But life has a way of pulling the rug out from under you when you least expect it. This is the story of how I discovered the two people I trusted most in the world had betrayed me in the worst possible way. It all started when my best friend, let's call him Jay, hit a rough patch. He'd lost his job and was going through a messy divorce. Being the good friend I thought I was, I offered him our spare room until he got back on his feet. My wife, W, was hesitant at first, but eventually agreed it was the right thing to do. He's family, I argued. We can't just leave him out in the cold. You nodded, a tight smile on her face. Of course, you're right. It'll be fine. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to that smile, the way it didn't quite reach her eyes. But hindsight, as they say, is 20/20. The first few weeks were fine. Jay helped around the house, started job hunting, and seemed to be getting his life back on track. W and I continued our normal routine, though I noticed she seemed a bit more distant than usual. I chalked it up to the stress of having a houseguest and didn't think much of it. Then came the night that changed everything. I came home late from work to find W practically glowing with excitement. I have amazing news, she exclaimed, pulling me into a tight hug. I'm pregnant. For a moment, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. You see, there was something I'd never told W, or anyone for that matter. Years ago, before we were married, I'd had a vasectomy. A medical scare had left me terrified of passing on potentially faulty genes, and I'd made the decision without consulting anyone. It was a secret I'd carried for years, always meaning to tell W, but never finding the right moment. I forced a smile onto my face, my mind racing. That's incredible, honey. How far along are you? About 6 weeks, she beamed, oblivious to my inner turmoil. I can't wait to tell everyone. I nodded numbly, excusing myself to the bathroom where I splashed cold water on my face. 6 weeks. Right around the time Jay had moved in. The implications were clear, but I couldn't bring myself to confront them. Not yet. Over the next few days, I watched W and Jay like a hawk, looking for any sign of impropriety. At first, I saw nothing out of the ordinary. But then I started noticing little things, lingering glances, inside jokes I wasn't privy to, the way they'd fall silent when I entered a room. One night, I pretended to go to bed early, claiming a headache. Instead, I crept downstairs and overheard a hushed conversation in the kitchen. We have to be careful, W was saying. He's starting to get suspicious. Jay's voice was low, urgent. Maybe we should tell him. It's not fair to keep this secret. No, W hissed. Not yet. We need more time. My heart pounded in my chest as I silently made my way back upstairs. They were definitely hiding something, but I needed proof. Concrete evidence I could use to confront them. So began my covert investigation. I installed hidden cameras in the common areas of the house, feeling sick to my stomach at the invasion of privacy, but desperate for the truth. I started logging their movements, noting every time they were alone together. I even went so far as to hack into W's phone, a skill I'd picked up in my IT job, but never thought I'd use for something like this. Days turned into weeks and my obsession grew. I'd barely slept, spending every free moment poring over footage and text logs. My work began to suffer, but I couldn't bring myself to care. All that mattered was uncovering the truth. Meanwhile, W's pregnancy progressed. She'd start gushing about nursery colors or baby names, and I'd have to excuse myself, unable to bear the parade. Jay, for his part, seemed to be around more and more, always ready to help with pregnancy-related tasks. It was during one of these moments that I finally caught them. I'd come home early, another headache excuse, and found them in the guest room, Jay's room. They weren't in a compromising position, but the intimacy of the scene was undeniable. W was sitting on the bed, Jay kneeling in front of her with his hand on her slightly swollen belly. I still can't believe this is happening, Jay was saying, his voice thick with emotion. W smiled down at him, running her fingers through his hair. I know, it's like a miracle. I stood frozen in the doorway, my presence unnoticed. A miracle. The word echoed in my head, mocking me. I wanted to burst in, to confront them then and there. But something held me back. A perverse desire to see how far they'd take this parade. So I retreated, silently making my way back to the car. I drove around aimlessly for hours, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, betrayal, grief, they all warred for dominance. But beneath it all was a cold, calculating determination. I would make them pay for this deception. Over the next month, I gathered more evidence. Secret meetings, intimate text messages, even a video of them kissing when they thought I wasn't home. All the while, I played the role of the excited expectant father, choking down bile every time W talked about our baby. Jay even had the audacity to congratulate me one night over beers. "You're gonna be a great dad, man," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "That kid is lucky to have you." I smiled tightly, raising my bottle in a mock toast. "Thanks, buddy. Couldn't do it without your support." The irony was so thick I could taste it. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I decided I had enough evidence. I chose a Friday evening, knowing both W and J would be home. I'd taken the day off work, using the time to prepare my confrontation. As we sat down to dinner, the tension in the air was palpable. W kept shooting concerned glances my way, clearly sensing something was off. "Is everything okay, honey?" she asked, reaching for my hand across the table. "You've been so quiet lately." I pulled my hand away, fixing her with a cold stare. "No, everything is not okay. In fact, things are about as far from okay as they could possibly be." Jay shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "What's going on, man? You know you can talk to us about anything." I let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, that's rich coming from you too. Tell me, how long have you been sleeping together?" The color drained from both their faces. Boo's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. Jay started to stammer out a denial. But I cut him off. "Save it. I know everything." I pulled out my phone, queuing up one of the incriminating videos. "Want to see yourselves in action?" You burst into tears. "It's not what you think. We never meant for this to happen." "Oh, really?" I spat. "You never meant to betray me? To make a fool of me in my own home?" I turned to Jay, my voice dripping with venom. "I took you in when you had nothing. And this is how you repay me?" Jay hung his head, unable to meet my gaze. "I'm so sorry, man. We fell in love. We didn't know how to tell you." "Love?" I echoed incredulously. "You call this love, sneaking around, lying to my face every day?" Reached for me, her tear-stained face pleading. "Please, let us explain. We were going to tell you, I swear. We wanted to wait until after the baby was born." And there it was, the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to reveal. "That's the thing, W. There's no way that baby could be mine." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. "I had a vasectomy years ago." The silence that followed was deafening. E's face crumpled in confusion, then dawning realization. Jay looked like he might be sick. But how?" B stammered. "Why didn't you tell me?" I shrugged, a strange calm settling over me now that everything was out in the open. I was scared of passing on bad genes, scared of commitment, scared of a lot of things. I kept meaning to tell you, but then years passed and it never seemed like the right time. Jay stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I need some air," he muttered, stumbling towards the door. "Oh no, you don't," I growled, blocking his path. "You don't get to run away from this. We're going to sit here and hash this out like adults." What followed was hours of painful, raw conversation. Tears were shed, voices were raised, and years of pent-up emotions came pouring out. You admitted she'd always felt something was missing in our marriage, that Jay had awakened feelings in her she thought long dead. Jay confessed to feeling guilty, but claimed he couldn't fight his feelings for W. As for me, I laid it all out on the table. My fears, my insecurities, the reasons behind my secret vasectomy. It was cathartic in a way, finally unburdening myself of the weight I'd carried for so long. By the time dawn broke, we were all emotionally exhausted. No decisions had been made about the future, but at least everything was out in the open. Jay packed a bag and left, promising to give us space to figure things out. W retreated to the guest room, leaving me alone in what suddenly felt like a very empty house. In the weeks that followed, W and I tried to salvage our marriage. We went to counseling, had long, honest conversations about our wants and needs. But in the end, we both knew too much damage had been done. The trust was irreparably broken on both sides. We filed for divorce, agreeing to keep things as amicable as possible for the sake of the child W was carrying. It wasn't easy, watching her belly grow with another man's baby, but I found myself strangely at peace with the situation. In a way, my deception had paved the way for theirs. We were all culpable in this mess. As for Jay, our friendship was obviously over. Last I heard, he and W were trying to make a go of it as a couple. Part of me hopes they succeed, not for their sakes, but for the innocent child caught in the middle of all this. Me? I'm starting over. New city, new job, new perspective on life. The experience taught me a lot about honesty, about the importance of communication in relationships. It's a hard lesson, but one I needed to learn. Sometimes I wonder how things might have turned out if I'd been honest from the beginning. Would W and I have worked through our issues? Would Jay and I still be friends? But dwelling on what-ifs is a dangerous game. All I can do now is move forward, armed with the wisdom of my mistakes. If there's one thing I want people to take away from my story, it's this. Secrets have a way of coming to light, no matter how deeply you try to bury them. The truth may hurt, but it's far less painful than living a lie. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, so please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.